When you're in your mid-20s, you really only have three options.
Get married,
Get a master's,
or run a marathon.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I'm Francis,
And welcome to this week's special episode of the Zone 2 podcast.
where we explore all there is to learn about Strava. You like what I did there?
I do like what you did
I changed it up.
That was good, Francis. Francis, do you know what day it is today?
What day is it?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. Today is our 10th episode of the Zone 2 podcast, and I think it's going to be a special one.
I think you might be onto something. Double digits. That's a big landmark, both for runners and for podcasters.
Yeah, you are right. Runners and podcasters, one and the same. I think we should just get right into it. I am in my taper. You are still very much in the thick of it. How was your week of training?
To say I'm in the thick of it is an understatement. My week of training was good. I did 4 workouts. One of them was a speed workout. The other 2 were just regular long-ish runs. And then today I did an 18-mile long run, which is my longest run to date. And it was very exciting, mostly in part because you were so kind to ride your bike along next to me and keep me company.
It was my pleasure.
It was also super helpful to have all the gels and my phone and a water bottle that I could just use whenever I wanted.
And a videographer.
And a videographer, yeah. Brian got some sweet shots. Those will be on the Instagram shortly, if not already.
They're probably
by the time
already
you're
there.
listening
Yeah,
to
yeah.
this. Yeah, so. But yeah, it was a great week. How was your week?
Francis, thanks for asking. I had a 65-mile week.
Whoa, 65 miles of running?
Yeah, not exactly. 35 of those were on the bike. So I am in my taper. I was really feeling it after last week's long run, so I gave myself an extra rest day. And then Tuesday, instead of doing a workout on my feet, I took my bike for a 20-mile ride. It was a beautiful day, beautiful afternoon. I had a pretty busy week outside of running this week, just with school and everything. So I didn't quite hit the mileage I was hoping for, but I feel like it was still pretty good. I'm pretty fatigued. I did go for my first shirtless run of the season on Friday. And
Oh my gosh.
I think you did as well, didn't you?
I did as well. It was freeing and exhilarating. I haven't run without a shirt in Boston until then. I hadn't done it. And it was, let me tell you, probably some of the best running I've had in a long time.
People were probably averting their eyes. They were blinded, right?
Yeah, well, I've been inside and covered up by either clouds blocking the sun or just by my own clothes that I'm wearing constantly. You know how it is.
I do know how it is.
And yeah, so coming out into the sunlight with my winter pale skin was honestly quite frightening. And I'm sure there were several people who were blinded.
There were a lot of pale people out for their runs this week when it was almost 70 degrees Friday. It's beautiful.
And then it's going to drop to what, the 20s this week? That's absurd.
Someone even said the S word, the possibility of some snow.
Oh my God.
I did cap my week off with a 15-mile long run yesterday and wrapped it up with 3 miles at marathon goal pace. Felt a little painful, and I found myself feeling hurt in some new and mysterious ways. I seem to be misled under the impression that tapering is supposed to be fun.
I wonder why that is.
I bet it's because this is the first chance my body's had in 5 months to properly heal and rest and recuperate. But I will be honest, I have never felt less motivated in this training cycle to get out and go for my runs.
You know how you can get motivated?
How?
If you go out and get a low taper fade.
Ooh, maybe I will.
Yeah. Or don't. That's totally fine. Brian, you went for a long run yesterday.
Francis, I did.
I didn't see you on your long run.
You didn't. I was a little bummed about it.
Yeah, it's too bad. How do I know you actually did that? Are you just lying to me? Are you just making all this up? I bet you're not actually even training for a marathon.
Scout's honor, Francis. I'm training and I ran.
Are you actually a Boy Scout?
I am an Eagle Scout.
I don't believe you.
Okay. I don't feel like I want to prove that to you.
Okay, well, how do I know that you went for a run?
Francis, I can refer you to my Strava.
Strava. I've literally never heard of that.
I find that hard to believe.
What is that?
Let me tell you about it. Strava is an activity-based social media application which focuses on fitness.
Yeah. If you take a look at, I guess, the big social media applications, you've got Instagram is picture-based. You've got Twitter, which is short text-based. You've got YouTube, which is long-form video-based. And you've got, Vine, if we're doing throwbacks, or TikTok, which is short form video based. Strava's bread and butter is activities. So whether it's going for a walk, going for a run, going skiing, doing yoga, going to the gym.
Well, what's really cool about Strava is you can track just about any activity that you do. I put hikes, skis, playing soccer, any activity. Like you said, going to the gym, swimming, biking, running, walking, and anything in between, anything and everything. Strava lets you log it. You can log activities either manually in the app or automatically through a compatible fitness device like a Garmin or Coros or an Apple Watch, any smartwatch.
Or a heart rate monitor.
Or heart rate monitor, exactly.
I would say it's probably one of the most popular apps, especially in the running community. I would say in competitive sports in general, but mostly endurance sports, Strava is super popular. It's kind of shocking sometimes to meet a runner who doesn't have Strava. I've met a couple, and I know a couple people who are runners, maybe not competitive runners or who go out of their way to do races and train for marathons, but they run every single day or several times a week, and they don't log it.
I know, and if you didn't log it, as the old adage goes, adage as old as time, if it isn't on Strava, did it even happen?
Yeah, and to them I say, no, it didn't. If people aren't giving you kudos and you're not getting any external validation, it's not worth doing.
What other reason is there to do something if not validation from
I don't
others?
know. There's no other reason to do anything.
It is funny, though, you talk about runners that don't have Strava. I wonder if it's a little bit similar to this debate about if it's a red flag or a green flag for somebody to not have Instagram, or when you start dating somebody and you're like, oh, what do they look like? And you go to show their friends and they don't have an Instagram.
And you're like, where is this person?
Yeah, it's like Francis said he went for a run with this person, but
I don't see that person.
it looks like it was a solo run.
It looks
on
like
Strava.
he's lying.
Red flag.
Anyway, so we're going to talk about a bunch of different features of Strava, how it tracks your runs, the different modes you can use. We're going to look at the free version features versus the paid version features. We're also going to look at some of the downsides of Strava. Despite all the upsides, there are obviously downsides when it comes to social media, things that I'm sure you can guess. Social media addiction, relying too much on external validation, as great as that is, sometimes it's too much. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of what Strava is.
Let's get into it. So we're going to start by just breaking down some of the most basic features of Strava, and then we'll talk a little bit about the social features as well. So Strava allows you to use a GPS to track your activities, and then it gives you insights such as distance, pace, elevation covered, and then depending on which device you tracked it on, if you tracked it either through Strava or through a third-party compatible device like we were talking about earlier, you can access and break down some of the data that comes from that device as well, such as heart rate data, relative efforts, I believe.
And why is that important? So even just the app itself, even just having the GPS to track your distance, pace, and elevation is super important, especially when it comes to training for things, only because you want to know sometimes your progression over time. You want to know if you are running too fast or too slow. If you go out for a zone 2 run and then you go and look at your Strava and it says, hey, you were actually running at like a 7:05 pace, you might want to take a step back and say, hey, maybe I need to slow it down. Unless that's your bread and butter, in which case you should probably find a professional coach because you are naturally gifted.
There's nothing wrong with being natural.
No, there's nothing. I wish I was.
He does.
I'm not. Do you know how hard I have to work?
It's hard to watch. That's what it is.
No, I mean, yeah, getting your pace insights is super, super important. And then also knowing kind of what your elevation is, if there's elevation gain, especially if you're on kind of like a sneaky uphill. Have you ever seen a sneaky uphill where you're running and it just feels awful for no reason? And you're like, what the heck is going on? And then you look at your Strava afterwards, you're like, oh, it was all uphill. That's why. Or on the opposite side, you have a great run and you set a PR in the mile and you're like, that was incredible. I must be getting so much more fit. And then you look at the elevation and it was all downhill. So
it's interesting though, because all this is just data.
It's just data.
We were talking, so Francis and I went on a run today and Francis was really not enjoying and was looking at his heart rate, and his heart rate was higher than he was expecting it to be. Oh. And that can happen. You have good days and bad days. And this has kind of been a common theme that we've talked about on a lot of our episodes so far. But the heart rate data and this data that you get from a tracking app like Strava is just one metric. And it's super important to not forget about the fact that how you feel is the most important. When you go on that run, how did you feel on that run at that pace? Because you might be looking at your heart rate data or your relative pace, but remembering how did it feel? How did the run go for you? I think is the most important metric. And what's really cool about Strava is when you upload an activity, you can edit the activity description. So myself and a lot of people I know on Strava will use that description to give some insights into that run. How did it go for them? Like, oh, this run was horrible and it made me never want to go for a run again, or this run felt awesome. It was so just beautiful. You can comment on the weather, other factors that might have influenced it that really can't be tracked across a tracking application.
Yeah, and like any other social media, you can let other people follow your profile. So you can have your friends follow you, you can follow them. And anytime you complete an activity, you can choose, I think by default, it will automatically upload to your public profile. But if you go into the settings, I'm not sure which one's exactly.
It's a privacy setting. You can change the automatic upload to only visible to you. And then you can change that and make it visible to anybody.
Yeah. But yeah, then your friends can see your activities and they can give you kudos. They can comment on it.
Yeah, let's talk about kudos for a second.
Yeah. What are kudos? So it's kind of
Do you remember those bars? Did you ever have a kudos bar?
No.
This was like a 2010s thing. I remember packing these when I went on like a Boy Scout trip. I'm pulling up a picture right now.
Oh, I thought you were talking. Okay, when you said kudos bar, I thought you meant like a place where people on Strava go and give each other kudos.
Can you imagine?
I was like, what?
Strava, if you're
okay,
listening,
no, you're talking about a candy bar.
It's not a candy bar. This is a way of life. Look at this thing.
I don't know.
It's got little mini M&Ms, the chocolate drizzle on top. Look at this. If you haven't had a kudos bar, I do the opposite of envy you.
Pity.
Yeah.
You pity me?
Good
I don't think I've ever had a kudos bar.
Word.
What are kudos? So if you look at social media platforms like Instagram, you can like people's photos, you can like their posts, and you can take those likes back. You can undo that. On Strava, and I will emphasize this, if you give someone kudos, you cannot take it back. That is a one-way street. So if you send someone a risky kudos, someone who you went on a run with and you said, oh, I kind of like this person, you shoot them a kudos, you can't take it back. Just letting you know. You've been warned. But kudos is really nice. It's probably the lowest effort affirmation you can give someone for going out there and going for a run or doing an activity. It takes literally no time. I sometimes will just sit on my phone before I go to bed, go through Strava, and just give kudos to everyone. Just getting out there in the first place deserves a bit of kudos. So
I agree. I wish you could give like a half kudos.
I swing back and forth between like spamming kudos and then being like, no, I have to be very, very like judicious about how I send these out. But I would say for the most part, I'm pretty generous with the kudos. And so should you. If you are on Strava, just give people kudos. I value myself way more when I get more kudos.
You can also comment on people's activities, which is something that I've grown really fond of recently, where in addition to the kudos, responding to some aspect of their run or sliding into the comments and hyping them up and saying, wow, that was an awesome workout, great run. Oh, new shoes, they look sick. Whatever it is, just that little touch of like personal hyping somebody up, I think is what Strava really is all about, is kind of giving you that space to support other runners or other people that are just getting out there, being active. And it's a very positive way to spread good energy, I think.
Yeah, I feel like you were saying, if you want to give a half kudos, maybe the kudos is the half kudos, and the comment is like the, wow, you really accomplished something, or I want to go out of my way to congratulate you or to give you some form of kudos. But one of the things that you mentioned, which reminded me, there's also a DM feature.
There is.
In Strava. So.
Sounds like you have a story.
Yes, I do have a story. So I ran the Salem Half Marathon last year in October, and after the run, I noticed that someone had given me kudos that I didn't follow. And then they DM'd me and said, slay on the PR, because it says, okay, you set a personal record, but it was my first half marathon. But this person, she didn't know. So she just said, slay on the half marathon PR. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, do you normally just slide into people's DMs? She was like, haha, not really. I was like, oh wow, I must be really special then. Anyway, so we like texted back and forth a little bit. Needless to say, it didn't go anywhere. But now that she's on my feed, I like all of her runs. She likes all of mine. So I think it's like a really kind of wholesome relationship that we have.
It is wholesome. You're just spreading the love.
We don't speak really. We don't have any conversations. It's thumbs up all the way. I mean, on the other hand, too, one of my friends that I went to high school with, or I guess I didn't go to high school with him. He was 4 years older than me, so he went to high school with my sister. He was friends with my cousins. He ran cross country and went to nationals. He's an all-American athlete. I don't have any of his contact information, but I wanted to reach out to him to get some pointers on running. And the only way that I had to contact him was through Strava. So I DM'd him and I was like, hey man, like, do you have any recommendations for how I can improve? And, you know, he gave me a lot of advice. So it's super cool. Most people are open to communicating with you. It's a pretty decent interface. I would say it's not like built for messaging people. It's not built for posting photos and videos. I think the maximum length of a video you can post is 30 seconds.
Just don't be a creep.
Just don't be a creep. I mean, like any social media platform, don't be a creep.
You would think it goes without saying, but I've heard
surprised.
Stories. It sounds like it needs to be
People can be
continually said.
I mean, I will say one of the things about Strava is that when you log your runs, a lot of times you can log the route itself, which is a GPS map.
It is.
And if you're not careful, you can accidentally give away where you live.
You can.
And this is actually a problem for a lot of running influencers who will post pictures of them on their runs, just innocuously running. And even if it's not a map of their route, if they post a picture of the route that they're on, just a selfie or something, there are people who will dox them and tell people exactly where they're running, which is super disrespectful and causes a lot of issues with privacy and safety for that matter.
I do know a couple people whose apprehension about using an app like Strava is they didn't want their GPS data being publicly available, or that concern of they didn't want people knowing where they live. But a cool feature of Strava is you can actually set a radius around your house where it will hide the route when you upload your route. So I have mine set to a 1/4 mile. If somebody went back and looked at all of my runs, they could probably figure out what street I live on. But there's 200 houses on my street. I think it would be a lot harder for them to figure out the exact house that I lived on, just because that radius around my house is hidden.
Yeah, I mean, same. I have the same exact feature enabled. And then you can also choose whether or not you display the map itself. You don't have to display the map. You can see it for yourself, but you can mute it for everyone else. What other thing?
I like the maps. I like seeing the maps. I'll say it when I go on my feed, or like when everyone's out running on the Charles. It's like all my little Sims. I like knowing where you are. I like knowing who's running where. It's fun. Oh, who did a Museum of Science loop today?
I think what's fun is finishing a run and then realizing that you passed someone you know on your route without even realizing it.
Yeah, but it's fun, but it's also sad because you're like, I could have said hi to them.
They're so close. So Strava is a very great tool for enabling social interaction and for getting to know other people in your area who are also running. There are clubs you can join. You can do challenges. It's really awesome. And I've found that for all of my social media consumption, this has been the most healthy. Not only because it's a fitness-based app, but also because the main way you use it is to support other people and give other people affirmation. So I think overwhelmingly healthy social media compared to a lot of other social media platforms.
So Strava provides runners with lots of valuable data and insights into their training and performance. We talked about before this pace data splits. It gives you mile splits, elevation data, elapsed time.
Yes, we should mention that is on the phone itself. That is just taking sensor data from your phone. Now, if you have a compatible device, whether that's a heart rate monitor that goes around your chest or your bicep or your wrist, or you have a smartwatch that has a heart rate monitor and a GPS, you can augment the data and add further granularity with more metrics. So you can add things like your heart rate data. You can add things like your cadence or the number of steps per minute you have. You can also add things such as the amount of power you're producing during your run, so wattage. And you can also gather information like the number of calories you've burned. So using a compatible device greatly increases the functionality of the app itself. And I should also mention that sometimes, depending on the fitness tracker you're using, so for example, if you're going from Whoop to Garmin or Whoop to Coros, there's going to be a little bit of a discrepancy between what sensors each device is actually going to have. So I know I didn't get cadence on my Whoop when I had it. I think now they have cadence, but when I had it, they didn't. So all of my runs when I had it have no information about my cadence, but now I have a Koros and I have all of my cadence for the past however many months.
Yeah. I also think when you have, so I have a Garmin, Francis has a Koros. Circle back to some of the specific features of our watches in a later episode, but through Garmin, I have the Garmin Connect app on my phone, so I can see a lot of this data through Garmin. So from that aspect, if you do have a secondary tracking device, that augmentation into Strava is a little bit redundant to what you can sometimes see in that device's app itself. But I think it depends on the app, it depends on how you use it, and it depends on your subscription level of Strava as well. So I have the poor person Strava, free
He does.
Strava, and Francis has the full-time employed adult rich person
First
Strava.
class. Yes.
First class. He's
Yeah, I
sitting in
have-
first class. I am sitting at the back of the plane. There's a baby crying in the seat next to me. That's my version of Strava.
And I've got my sleep mask on, and they're feeding me cheese and wine.
Yeah, and I heard you got a hot towel when you sat
I
down
do.
too. That sounds nice.
I do. I thought it was a spring roll, and I tried to eat it.
You can tell he doesn't fly first class very often.
No. Yeah, there's a lot of differences of features between the two. I will say, personally, I think if you can afford it, the premium version is 100% worth it, and we'll get into the specific as to why.
Yeah.
But in general, features that appear on both. You get your heart rate data regardless. You can send kudos regardless. You get elevation data, pace data, elapsed time, miles splits, gear tracking, which I know, Brian, that's one of your favorite features.
Yeah, so I actually prefer using the Strava gear tracking compared to using it in the Garmin app. I think it just is easier for me, and I only like updating which shoes I wore on a run in one place. I also use Strava for biking too, so it lets me do that for my biking as well, where I can track miles on my bikes, which is super helpful from a maintenance standpoint of knowing when I should probably be getting my bike tuned or fixed. I can track miles on my shoes, which is really important data to know when you should be thinking about retiring your shoes. I think part of that, again, is a feel thing, but part of that is a data thing. So it's super helpful knowing your miles. I love the Strava gear tracker, and then you can retire shoes in there as well and look back and see all the gear, all the shoes that you've used over the years. I think is a great feature, and that is available in the coach version of Strava.
A couple of the other features you get with the free and paid version are cadence and power, like I mentioned before. But again, this is sometimes tracker dependent. So if your tracker's not calculating your steps per minute or the amount of power that you're producing, you're not going to see that in Strava. Essentially, your tracker's just going to send all of the data that it has over to Strava, and then Strava is going to parse that and display it in a consistent format.
You can also see mileage per week. You can see your yearly statistics, challenges, and you can join clubs. If your run club has a club on Strava, you can join that. And clubs or individuals can do posts, so non-activity posts on Strava that you can view and interact with, whether it be scheduled events or group runs or trying to recruit friends to go on a run with you. Underrated feature of Strava. I think more people should be using it.
Yeah, and then so now we get into the territory of paid features versus free features. So everything that we're going to mention from here on out comes with the paid tier. And there are definitely a couple that maybe aren't as useful, specifically athlete intelligence. This is a new one, kind of riding the whole AI LLM wave that ChatGPT started. Essentially what it is they take all of the data from your run, they run it through an LLM, and then they have it spit out like a plain English analysis. So it'll be like, wow, you did really good today. What a great effort. You ran at a pace of X, and then you had a heart rate of Y, and overall fitness increased by this much. Do I really need an AI chatbot to tell me that? No, but it is nice to kind of have it in plain English. And
Well, you have a coach too.
I have a coach too, so I don't need that. I already have Coach Kev giving me kudos every time I go for a run. Shout out, Coach. Some of the most useful features I think you get with the paid version are the workout analysis, the heart rate zones, and the route creation and discovery. I would say those three make having the paid version 100% worth it. What are those?
I definitely feel like I miss out most on the route discovery. I think this would especially be relevant from a traveling standpoint. Let's say you go on vacation to a new city. You're only there for a couple of days. You want to go for a run and you're probably thinking, all right, where are people running in this city? I think that route discovery would be a super helpful way to find the best parks, the best routes, or depending on where you are, maybe the safest places that people could be running. Mm-hmm. And that is something that you don't get with the free version of Strava that I do feel like I miss out on. But route creation basically allows you to go into the app and plan your run or plan your route for your activity, selecting a distance, and it gives you the distance elevation data ahead of time so that you know how far you're going to be going beforehand. And when you are in the city that you live in, sometimes you don't need that. Like I know when I go to the Charles, which bridge I have to go to get to what mile. But if you're in a new city or you don't know where you are or you're exploring new territory and you're trying to make a loop out of it, it could be really hard if you don't plan your route ahead of time to know how far you're going to be going. There are secondary apps that allow you to do that, but I think route creation in Strava sounds like a really cool feature. And then discovery, like I said before.
Yeah, and another thing about discovery, which is really cool, is that you can search for routes based on distance and based on elevation gain, which is huge, especially if you are, like you said, in a new place and you're like, I need to go for a 7-mile run or I need to go for a 5-mile run. You can just search that and then it'll give you a bunch of options. Another thing, I don't know if there's a difference between the free version or the paid version, but one of the features that was released recently was the public nighttime heat map. So,
interesting.
You can see where people run specifically at night. So if you are in a new city and you're like, what's safe? I can only run after 7 o'clock because of work or something. Mm-hmm. You can see exactly where people are running the most. So for safety, that is a huge feature.
Wow, that is huge. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. And then you can also see your personal heat map as well, which is like, where have I run the most? I don't know if you can get that in the free version. Maybe.
I feel like I've seen it, but I don't think I can find the specific heat map.
Yeah, I will say sometimes the menus of Strava can be a little bit confusing and you kind of have to root around a little bit. But yeah, that's route creation and discovery. The next one that's super important, workout analysis. Mm-hmm. I find that really cool. So in the free version, you get to see the mile splits, but in the paid version, if you're doing an interval, you can actually see the breakdown of those intervals and kind of see how your pace changes over time. So you'll see a nice histogram of like, here's your warm up. It'll give you along the y-axis pace, and then along the x-axis, it'll give you distance, and then it'll break it down. And you'll be able to see like, I did rest here. Oh, my third mile was like slightly faster. It's nice to visualize it.
So this used to be visible on the free version of Strava. You couldn't interact with it, but you could view it based on your workout. And they recently got rid of it with the newest update to Strava, where you can no longer view that without the paid version.
Yeah, that is annoying when they kind of shrink what's available on the free version to kind of force people into the paid version. From like an ethical standpoint, yeah, it kind of sucks, but also like from a business standpoint, it makes sense.
It does make sense. And that's the thing too, is whether you use the free version of Strava or whether you do choose to pay for the premium version, they are a business, but this is also a product. And I would say Francis and I are both huge fans of the product. We don't work for Strava. We're not being paid to promote them by any means.
Not yet.
Not yet. But I think it is just an excellent product that from a free standpoint, I think it's amazing the stuff that you have access to and are able to use on the free version.
Well, 100%. I mean, it is kind of remarkable too how much the community has adopted this app. I will say it is almost ubiquitous when it comes to running.
It is. It's almost assumed that if you're running, it's going to be on Strava. And if you run, you're going to be on Strava. And that circles back to what we were saying before, how it's a little weird if you run and it's not on Strava. Nothing wrong with it, but it's unusual.
I will say the third feature with the paid version that I think is invaluable is the heart rate zones. And basically when you get the paid version, you can go into your profile, you can set your max heart rate, and then it will automatically break down your pace zones based on your effort. So for me, like it has my zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5. And so when I go for a run, just in the app itself, I can see exactly, what percentage of my run was in zone 2, what percentage was in zone 3, 4, 5, whatever. I can also get that in my Chorus app, and I'm sure you can also get that in your Garmin app. So why have all of this data duplicated? And this is, in my opinion, the true purpose of Strava. I think it's really important to have redundancy when it comes to to fitness tracking because sometimes things can go wrong.
Or things break.
Things break and you can lose a lot of data.
Yeah.
Once it gets uploaded to Strava, it is now Strava data. It is logged into their system. It's not like it's just pulling and displaying your Garmin data. It is now taking the actual workout raw data from your Garmin or your Coros or whatever fitness or tracker you're wearing, and then it displays it. This is also extremely important when you decide to change trackers. I went from Whoop to Coros, and if I didn't have Strava, I wouldn't be able to have any of that data ported over. So it's nice to have it all in one place that I can go to and look back and see all the progress I've made. I can also upload all of the data from my Whoop to my Coros because Whoop does not support exporting data to Coros. The formats are different. So when I got my Coros, I was like, oh, I can't upload my Whoop data. So I'm going to upload my Strava data to Coros. And the format was compatible. So if I hadn't had a Strava, I wouldn't have been able to take any of my previous workouts and put them on my current watch.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
It's cool that you're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's some of the feature differences, I guess, between free or paid version of Strava. You really can't go wrong with what you have access to. The last thing I would say, and this kind of ties into our next topic of challenges and competitions, and I think you talk about King of the Mountains and crowns for segments, and a lot of this stuff is not clearly visible on the free version of Strava. So if you go into your Strava app and you're looking for segments, that segment on your Strava profile is behind the paywall, which is a little bit hard to see it.
Brian, what is a segment?
A segment is, it's a little bit arbitrary. It's something that someone created, someone with the paid version of Strava created. A segment is a piece of road or trail somewhere that you can run that has a name and a designation, and then anybody who runs or travels across that segment competes for when they go across it. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, it's essentially just a point A to point B. It has a label, and then once it's put into the Strava database, every single person who runs that route is going to get put on a leaderboard. So the faster you do it, the higher you're going to be up on the leaderboard. The slower you do it, the lower down.
And what's really cool about running in Boston, a place where there's a lot of teams, there's a lot of professional runners who do their training runs in the Boston area, is there are segments where if you look at the top of the leaderboard, it might be a pro or a semi-pro athlete up there.
Yeah, there was one leaderboard where I was not top 10, but I was in the top 20. I was in the top 20. And you know who was number one?
Who was that?
Graham Blanks.
How about that?
Yeah.
And you tried to segment snipe and you couldn't do it?
No, I happened to find out that was his segment after the run, and I was like, huh.
So segment sniping is a thing I feel like I've seen on social media a decent bit recently, where people will go out for an easy run and then find, let's say you have a segment that's 1/10 of a mile long. So you'll go out for an easy run, get to this 1/10 of a mile long segment, and sprint the hell out of that 1/10 of a mile to try to steal
knock off the leaderboard?
To try to steal the crown and try to knock off the leaderboard.
That's kind of fun.
Which is kind of fun. I feel like it would be fun to do that for... This is the thing about Strava segments, too, is a lot of them have pretty fun names. Like, there's one segment on the Esplanade called Where's Your Shirt, Bro? Anyone who's run on the Esplanade has probably seen that. I think that's one of the funnier ones I've seen in the Boston area.
I like the one by me, which goes right past the IHOP, called Running for Pancakes.
Is that the one with the pancake emoji?
It might be, yeah.
Okay.
It probably is.
I've seen that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to kind of find ones that people aren't necessarily competing for, or they just run without thinking about a specific time.
Yeah.
And then you just say, okay, I'm going to steal this person's Strava.
I used to like this too. So before I moved to Boston, I was living in New Jersey, and there was a county park near me where I would go mountain biking with one of my friends from REI all the time. And he was faster than me on a mountain bike. I'm not saying that we were competing, but we would always race kind of against our own times down on this really fun downhill segment that was probably close to a mile long, and we would just rip it as fast as we could on our bikes. And every single time it was fun to kind of have that challenge. It was always at the end of our rides. It was the last segment getting back to our car, and we would make a little challenge out of it of being like, we are going to just rip far side downhill as fast as we can. And shout out to Julian. I don't know if you're listening to the pod or not, but Last I checked, he held the crown for the segment, which was pretty impressive. So we've talked a little bit about segments, competing for segments.
Talking about the competition aspect of the app, as well as, I guess, partially the social, competing with your friends, that sort of thing.
Which does raise the question, Francis, is competition the thief of joy?
Is competition always healthy? I think there is a lot to be said about comparison being the thief of joy. And on an app where it is so easy to compare one's stats to someone else's, it can send you down a rabbit hole of feeling sometimes a little bit inadequate, especially when you have access to running data and training data of professional athletes. So I follow 3 professional runners, I think, on Strava. They're from an Adidas team called Tin Man Elite based out in Colorado. Shout out if you hear this, which I highly doubt it, but if you do, hit me up. You won't.
Well, they're not going to hit you up to join the team.
No, definitely not. They're professional runners. I see their segments and I get a little sad. And I understand they're professionals. They're just gifted and they're training all the time, every day, probably twice. But even still, seeing their tempo runs as like mid 5 minute per mile pace, and then my tempo runs are like high 6s. It's hard not to compare because it's like it's a number, but obviously there's more to it than that. It's not just the number. I know, Brian, you mentioned earlier, sometimes the data can be a rabbit hole that you fall down and get obsessed with, and
sometimes defeats the purpose of it a little bit. Like, obviously, if you go for a race, you are timed when you go for the race. But when you are out going for a run, yes, this data is helpful from a training standpoint, especially if you're training for a race, or if you, like Francis or I, if you have a goal time for a race that you're trying to achieve, it's helpful having this data just to know where you're at. But the question does have to be asked, does it defeat the purpose a little bit of going out to run for fitness or to run for fun, to then be looking at this data of, oh, how fast did I go? How far did I go? And kind of getting sucked into that comparison of, oh, this person ran further than me, or oh, this person ran faster than me, when in reality, and again, this is another common theme I think of the episode so far, where the most important thing is that you're out going for a run, and that's why you get kudos, and that's why I really don't believe in kudos being necessarily a pace dependent thing. I think if you're out there doing the work and you're out there having fun and enjoying it, you get kudos. You're outside. You're running. How does the saying go? You're faster than the guy that's on the couch.
That's so true. That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, you're putting in the work. You're getting out the door. You're taking the first step, quite literally. I think it's, like I said, easy to compare yourself to other people, but the data is only one metric. And again, it's your data, and you shouldn't be you should be comparing yourself to yourself from 2 months ago. Like that is what you should be using it for.
Well, and that's the most important thing is, I think, that you do it for yourself. That motivation has to be intrinsic. Like, you are out there to exercise, to get your run in. But when you talk about goal setting and competition and trying to beat people for segments, like, yes, I think it's a fun feature, and it's fun or I'm sure it's fun to play around with it if you have the paid version of Strava. But I have to say that I don't think that that's necessary to enjoy the act of going for a run. I think that you can enjoy running without having that competition aspect.
Yeah, and I also think that you can still get a lot out of the app itself without focusing on leaderboards or anything along that line.
This is an aside, but I've done a lot of hiking in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Absolutely stunning. The White Mountains are home to quite a few trail runners, some of whom are quite competitive when it comes to segment sniping or competing for segments, especially popular segments. And I had a debate with somebody once about whether this was good or this was healthy or not. And the root of our debate was whether that defeated the purpose of going out into nature. If this is the situation that you're doing this, and if you're going out into nature for the sole purpose of, oh, I'm going to race somebody up this mountain, or I'm going to race for this time up this mountain, that defeats, I guess, the purpose of what going out into nature really is, which I think is to step away from this technological aspect, I guess, that we're talking about, and to step away from society and to immerse yourself in the outdoors and be present and be off your phone. And if you're out there for the sole purpose of being able to look at your phone and see a crown next to your name for a segment that you went up, does that defeat the purpose? That's really to be answered for yourself. And I think that's the thing about Strava too, is each person has the opportunity to use it how they want to use it. If that's what's going to get you out the door and get you running, better that you're out there running than not running, but it's really up to you.
And kind of touching on something you said earlier about extrinsic motivation, I think I had a moment a couple months ago. I had been on Strava for, I think at that point, almost a little over a year, maybe a year and a half. And I had this thought that was like, am I doing this for the right reasons? Am I training for the right reasons? Who am I doing this for? Mm-hmm. Am I trying to impress anyone? Do I want people to see me? And it was 20 degrees out. I was freezing. I had my nose was running. It was awful. And I thought to myself in that moment, I was like, I would not do this for anyone. I was like, there's not a single person I know that I would willingly go out and do this for. So I must be doing it for myself, because I don't think I would do this for anyone else. It was that rough of a run. And so I think that kind of solidified it for me, where I was like, okay, I think I'm doing this for the right reasons. And so, now my approach to Strava, at first it was definitely more of an addiction, where it's I need to get my kudos. Yeah. If I don't get kudos on a run, I feel like it was horrible. But now I kind of approach it as, hey, I just want to put myself out there, want to show people what I'm doing. Sometimes I break my runs into multiple posts, so it'll be one will be the core of the run, and the other one will be a cool down, just because I forgot to keep my watch going and had to restart it again. So it kind of is what you make it. If you want it to be the center of your life, it will be the center of your life, for better or for worse. Mm-hmm. But if you want it to just be a way to connect with people and really kind of show them what you're doing, then it can also be that.
Yeah, I do think it's important for people, especially in this age of social media, to ask themselves, am I going for this run for intrinsic reasons? Meaning, am I going for this run because I want to do it, or am I going for it for extrinsic reasons of I'm looking for validation from others in the form of kudos on Strava, and I want people to see this effort that I'm putting in and see me going on runs and see me out getting these miles in. Not that there's necessarily a right answer, nor I think is there a problem with extrinsic motivation, but I personally think agree with Francis that I think it's important that you're going out running and going for your runs, especially in this age of social media, for reasons that are personal to you, regardless of what other people think of you. Yes, it's nice to get kudos, but would you still be going for runs if you had 0 followers on Strava, nobody there to give you kudos, and you're just going to get out there and move? And it's easy to sit and say, yeah, of course I would, but...
I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I definitely put in a little extra effort to my workouts because I know that time is going to be publicly displayed. So part of that motivation to kind of go a little bit faster is, hey, I want people to be like, wow, that was actually really fast. And, I do think that, you talk about doing it for personal reasons and putting in the work, but also if you're putting in a lot of effort, on a workout or a race, you deserve some recognition. I deserve some recognition. You deserve some recognition.
I appreciate that, Francis, but I don't know if you necessarily need a formal measure, I guess. It can be really easy to look at kudos numbers of, on this run I got X number of kudos, but on this run I only got X number of kudos. It can be really easy to get sucked into that. The relative amount of kudos, I suppose, that you got on a run doesn't necessarily mean that it was better or worse for you to be going on that run.
Oh, no, 100%.
You're just out there doing it.
I'm just saying, I think that getting the recognition, regardless of how many kudos it is, I think that's really nice, especially if it's a really difficult workout or a PR or some very significant moment to you. And it's nice as well because, we run with a lot of people, we're friends with a lot of runners, and we'll give each other kudos in person. That's called congratulations.
It's true.
But
great run.
Yeah, great run. A little fist bump or something like that. But I also think that I'm friends with a lot of people who don't live in Boston, and being able to give them congratulations when they do a really good job on a run, and vice versa, seeing their recognition for something that I did is also very heartening. And not to say that not having Strava would diminish the experience, but I think it makes it feel a little bit more like a community.
Yeah, and it's, I think, a helpful vehicle to kind of share that community love. Like we've both run with several run clubs here in Boston. We have a lot of friends who we'll go on runs with, but especially with a busy schedule, it's not reasonable to expect that you're going to be able to go on a run with somebody every single day and get that fist bump after the run of, hey, great run, great workout. Sometimes you're out there slogging, doing it by yourself, or other people are out there doing hill workouts by themselves. And it's really nice to see and acknowledge, wow, you're putting in this effort. You're doing like awesome work. Like it's so cool that you have this vehicle where you can hype somebody up for just kicking ass. Like I think it's really something. I think it's cool.
And I would say objectively, like you compare this to all the other social media platforms, like there's no recommendation algorithm here. I don't
There's
think
no reels.
there's no reels. Just
Not
wait.
yet. Oh.
Yeah. Short form content. No, thank you. Although,
Enjoy your 10-second sound.
yeah, I don't know. That would be crazy. Yeah, there's no like recommendation algorithm. You only see the people you follow. It doesn't recommend other profiles to you, which I think is like a huge thing, especially when you have algorithms recommending you things that it thinks you're going to like just to waste your time. I think Strava, the time sync is more about really trying to give people congratulations or seeing your data and your runs. And I think that that's like a much healthier way to approach social media. I think if you're making meaningful connections,
Of course.
it's worth it. And the same goes for any social media platform, like on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. If you're making meaningful connections, I think it's worth it. But as soon as it starts to get into this, like, what is the algorithm feeding me? Then you start to get into like time sinks and addiction, dopamine addiction, that sort of thing. And luckily Strava, it's like I'm choosing to use this app to connect with other people. And then once I'm done doing that, I will close it.
The question should be asked though, Francis, at what point does it stop being a choice? You mentioned dopamine before. This is a known mechanism, especially when it comes to drug addiction or social media addiction as well. There have been a lot more studies recently that have looked into this of the physiological response to somebody liking your picture or to somebody giving you kudos on something. And there's no denying that you get that energy rush when someone
100%.
likes something on Instagram or something like something from Strava. This is not, oh, there's something wrong with me. This is a physiological, like foundational human system that is built into us. But then you talk about addiction, and that is a dysfunction of this regulatory system where you have feedback to the point of relying on that stimulus to have that response, to have that validation. So at what point does this become problematic then, where you mentioned, like, before you go to bed, you're going through Strava, giving everybody kudos. At what point are you doing that because you need to? Or do you ever find yourself opening Strava mindlessly and then being like, oh, I'm in Strava right now, without remembering or without intentionally being like, let me go check Strava and see what my friends did?
Yeah, I will say that I do get a physiological response when I see that I've gotten kudos. But usually what I do is I open up the notification, I see who it was, and that's it. I'm not going into the app. And I think that's a distinction here, is that Strava is not necessarily designed to hold you and to hold your attention, which I think is one of the things that makes it a lot better in terms of social media. I often don't find myself mindlessly opening Strava and just like scrolling through stuff. When I do give people kudos, like if I'm about to go to bed or something, I'm not super thorough about it. I'm not like, I have to give people kudos. I just give people kudos for what I think is a reasonable amount of time until it starts to say activity from yesterday. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, I've gone too far back. Like, I'm not going to go back to someone's activity from 3 months ago, that I missed, giving them kudos on their cool down run. I'm not going to give them kudos because that's like, what's the point of that?
So let me ask you this one, because I'm definitely guilty of this. You do a run, you do a hard workout, you go for a long run. You get home, you upload the run, you take a shower, you eat, whatever. Then are you opening Strava back up to see what kind of kudos you got for that workout that you just did?
Well, I will say I get notifications from Strava.
Oh, got to turn that off.
Well, so I just know who's giving me kudos as it's happening. It's not like pinging my phone or it's not going off or anything. So I'm not like actively picking up my phone or it's not making noise or anything. But I do see on my home screen if I have a Strava notification or if someone commented on a Strava. I generally don't care about the kudos notifications as much. It just sort of is what it is. I feel like now at this point, I kind of average the amount of kudos that I have. Like it's pretty consistent between all my workouts. But if someone gives me a comment, like I definitely want to go in and read the comment, and then I will almost always respond to it just because I think that's like a fun thing to do.
And it's courteous.
I would say that I'm not usually drawn to Strava in terms of, having to be on it.
Well, that's quite healthy of you.
Yeah, I can't say the same for Instagram, and I need to stop.
But he can't.
But I can't because it is so good. Those reels are so funny.
I know. The difference between scrolling one reel or scrolling 100 reels is nothing. So I guess the last point I guess we should talk about then is, do you think it's problematic if users of this app have a perceived self-image or self-worth that is a product of these extrinsic motivating factors like kudos on Strava? Do you think it's a problem? I would say from a social media addiction standpoint, if you're going to be addicted to using anything, if the app that you're addicted to is making you go outside and run, that is by far the best thing you could be addicted to. It is still an addiction.
Yeah, I mean, I think just given the way the app is set up, spending time on it is less enticing. I also think that...
Yeah, but it's not necessarily about spending time on it. It's about opening it.
It's about opening it. It's about valuing yourself based on kudos.
Yes.
I will say, I think that in of itself can sometimes, and don't take this the wrong way, but I think sometimes that can be a tool, like a motivation tool. Like there have definitely been times when I have a run scheduled and I really don't want to do it. But one of the things that I can use mentally as motivation is, okay, I'm going to get kudos from this and people are going to see that I went for a run. And the only reason for me not wanting to go on the run is because I'm lazy. And so in times like that, I find that it can be a tool in sort of a toxic way, but the result is that I do something that I was supposed to do in the first place. So it's sort of like I'm doing this run. I may not want to. It might suck, but you have bad runs. And sometimes the silver lining is you get to show people you went for a run and they get to say, good job.
Yeah.
And that to me is fine. But that's Strava, kind of in a nutshell. I know there's a ton to the app, and we could go into specifics for literal hours. I mean, we both use it so much, and it's such a useful tool. But if you have any specific questions, if you want to leave comments on this episode, you can 100% do that, and we'll
answer, or we'll direct you to somebody who's more qualified to.
Or we'll direct you to someone who's more qualified. But yeah, no, we can do our best to try to find answers. But yeah, if you're thinking about trying Strava, again, there's a free version. Highly recommend downloading it. See if you like it. If you don't need to have it. You can delete it. That's how phones work.
It's true. I like it too, and I think my dad likes it, especially. I'm giving Dad another shout out here. So my dad will track his trips to the gym on Strava. So I'll see if he does time on the treadmill when he goes to the gym, he'll be on Strava, and I like that because then I'm giving him kudos, and I'm like, awesome. I'm glad that you're out there in the gym. But he loves going on there and seeing where I've been running, how far I've been running that week, what I've been up to, who I've been running with. I think it seems like he loves having that data. So even if you don't download Strava for you, do it for your parents. Do it for your dad who might want to see where you're running.
Yeah. It's a good way to connect with people. Yeah. I would say there's so many benefits to Strava that I don't know if there's a reason to not download it. If you're not running or you're not doing anything like that, yeah, maybe Strava's not the app for you, but
if you are running, talk to your doctor about
see if
Strava.
Strava's healthy. See if your heart is healthy enough for Strava.
Wait,
and sex. Strava and sex. Set a Netflix and chill.
This ties in. Okay, this is the last little aside that we'll do before we wrap things up. So I actually saw this on Instagram, but it was a woman who used her Garmin and then uploaded the fitness data onto Strava, tracking her labor and delivery of her child.
I did see that.
Which I still don't know how I feel about it.
That's
I think
endurance.
I think that's funny. I mean,
it was like 3 hours.
Yeah, it was hours long.
But her heart rate was remarkably low.
It was.
It was like 150 the entire time.
Had some good pain meds, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe she had an epidural.
I've never given birth, so I can't speak to that.
I did once.
To a poop.
But yeah, get Strava.
All right. That wraps up all we have time for.
Brian, do you have a fun fact?
Francis, do I have the funnest fact of them all?
Here we go.
Did you know that Strava means to strive in Swedish?
We all strive.
We all strive to do better. We strive to be faster, and we strive.
We can strive to be better.
Thank you for listening to the Zone 2 podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram at the Zone 2 podcast. You can catch new episodes every Wednesday streaming on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.